and welcome back to the channel. Now every winter, because of condensation I'm assuming, I usually get rust on my tools, whether it's light surface rust or a little bit more severe like this socket right here. Problem is, we all know tools are not cheap, so it's really disappointing to see my tools kind of go to waste here. So I want to try to see if I could find something to take care of this without causing too much harm to my tools. So here's what I ended up picking up. It's Rustoleum's Rust Dissolver. Now I've never tried this before. This is my first time, and I just kind of took the leap and I bought the big gallon or whatever amount it is. I just bought the big one. And the purpose of that was so I could fill this whole container right here and just completely submerge my tools in this stuff. And just pretty much see how well it works. Now in this shot, the stains that you're seeing at the bottom is not inside of the liquid. It's actually just the mats that I have down on the table. They are covered in assembly lube from my engine build, so don't let it throw you off. The container is perfectly clean at this point. And what I'm going to do here is submerge half of the tool inside of this chemical here, and I want to see it before and after, so it's the reason why I'm doing it like this. Now I'm sure the rust dissolver does work best if you can let the item sit in the chemical for as long as possible, but because they do advertise that it works as fast as 30 minutes, we're actually going to pull these items out at the 30-minute mark and let's check its progress and let's see how well it's working. Now for this test, I am doing all of this inside of my house in the basement, but it didn't take long for the smells of this chemical to pretty much make its way around my house, and it was very noticeable. So after this test, I did end up taking this container into the garage, so it's something to keep in mind. I would not recommend doing something like this inside of your house. Okay, so we are just past the 30-minute mark, and now it's time to pull these items out and give them a good inspection. If you look closely, you could actually see the rust just floating on the liquid here. As you can see, all I did is wipe it down with a paper towel, and look at that massive difference between the side that was submerged and the side that wasn't. So far it's looking pretty good. Now there is something else to notice, basically discoloration, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But as far as what I'm seeing here, it looks like the chemical is working. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the other items out, and same exact thing here, just cleaning them. We're not using any solvents, no water or anything like that. We're just gonna go ahead and wipe them down just so we could see how well the chemical itself works. And so far I'm liking it. It seems to be working well, and it seems to have removed all of the surface rust. So it's looking good, it's looking promising. And here goes my brake caliper tool. As you can see, all the surface rust is gone. It almost looks like a brand new tool again. So I'm really happy with this so far. Now I thought this was interesting because the amount of rust that was removed from the tools seemed like it should have been a lot more than what I see here in this liquid. Of course you could see the larger chunks, but it almost seems like it does stand true to its name. It actually does dissolve the rust. These are my favorite side cutters, and as you can see, it's not really rust that's on them, they're just old. But I still want to see what the chemical can do for them, and also it's a really good test to see how the chemical reacts to either plastic handles or rubberized handles or whatever. So that's where I'm taking that chance and just going ahead and dipping them in there. And as you can see, I'm throwing a handful of other tools in there that have surface rust on them. So I want to see how well it works, and we'll take a closer look at each tool that I put inside the liquid. At this point, you can really see the chemical reaction that's going on here. You can see how it's just really eating right through that rust. And this batch of tools I actually left in a little bit longer than 30 minutes. I want to say it was probably about an hour and a half. Now it does claim that it protects bare metal for up to 12 months. But I did give these parts a quick cleaning, and I'm just going to go ahead and coat them in oil. And by the time I was done with this, I really noticed that my tool just looked like it was 100% brand new at this point. And now let's go back to that first socket and take a close look at it. It's been completely submerged. Is there anything that you noticed that's a little bit off about it, besides it no longer having rust on it? Well, you might have noticed that there's no laser etching on it now. The size is completely gone. So that's very disappointing to me. That's a big negative to me. You see how these sockets from Harbor Freight are stamped? So that's not an issue. You're always going to see the size on them because they're stamped into the metal. Whereas the laser etched ones, not so much. And a lot of my sockets happen to be laser etched, as this one is right here from Gray Pneumatic. You can see that the 19mm is just about gone. So if I were to leave that socket in there just a little bit longer, it would completely be gone and I would be unable to tell what size it is. So I might end up having to stamp these sockets myself. Here I have some adapters for my hydraulic brake flaring tool, and they did have some surface rust on them, so they did turn out great. Luckily these are stamped with their sizes or whatever it is that they are. There's no laser etching in this kit right here, so there was no issue at all with dipping them inside of this solution. Now at this point I should have had gloves on because I could not get the smell out of my hands. Even though these parts are completely dried, the rest of my day I kept smelling it and it was just really irritating. Here we have another laser etched socket, and as you can see, the 14 on it is just about gone. So it's really disappointing to me. I don't like that. I'm gonna have to stamp this one as well. But it's just something to keep in mind if your sockets are like mine. Taking a closer look at the pliers, we could just focus on the handles here. Whether it's the rubberized coating or plastic ones, it didn't seem to affect it at all. So that's really good to see and good to know that I could just dump any of my pliers into here and I don't have to worry about the handles. Now I know these side cutters don't look very impressive, but the thing about them is I actually found this inside of an engine bay that had been sitting in a car for years, I can only imagine, and they were so rusty that I could not even open them. They would not budge. So the fact that they move so freely now, to me, is a massive improvement, and at least they're functional now. Now we could talk about the other problem with this is discoloration. So I grabbed some of the pieces that were dumped in the chemical and I put oil on them, hoping that maybe the oil would help rejuvenate some of that color, but no, it didn't really help. On the left we have what they're supposed to look like, and on the right we have the one that was put inside of the chemical. So you can see there is a color difference. So the same thing with these sockets here, and take a very close look at the numbers. See how pronounced the 17 is? Now look at the 19, so you could see it really was removing the numbers on them. And here goes the Harbor Freight axle nut sockets, same exact thing here, discoloration, the numbers are completely gone. So if that's also a problem for you, you might want to look into another option, but I give it a thumbs up. I think the solution works great. It's fast, it's easy, so I like it. But I know some people are probably curious about how does it work on heavy rust. So I went through my junk pile here of whatever is left, and I found some things that have some more or less heavy rust on them. So we're just gonna go ahead and let these sit inside of the chemical for 24 hours, let's say, and let's see how well it works. So yes, you could argue that this part looks just about brand new. There is still some rust on there, but I have no doubt that if you were to leave it in a container for a little longer, it would remove all of it. But I did go over this with a wire brush, and that rust that's left came right off. So it's really not an issue at all. Now we're going to go ahead and look at the outer tie rod. And the most important thing to focus on here is the threads. And to me, it looks like it came out great. So that looks promising. It looks like it did a great job on this outer tie rod. And looking at the final part, you can see pretty much the same results. Now the paint that's flaking off, I'm sure it was like that before we put it in the chemical. But that's it for this video. So if you like the video, you know what to do. Give it a thumbs up. If you're considering subscribing, don't forget to hit that notification bell. And like always, thanks for watching.